renowned entrepreneur. He started Cerebral Heights and merged it with Edge Makers. He's an alumni of I Am Lucknow, and Cerebral Heights is one of the largest educational brand in India, I must say, and the largest out of central India. Nurture Talent Academy is glad and honored to have Mr. Akash here as our guest, and we will love to hear from his experiences. We will have about 1 hour of the session today, and after every 15 minutes we will take a quick break for any question answers and discussions. Please feel free to type in your questions in the questions window, or you can speak your questions. There is a button uh, which is a hand icon. You can raise your hand and we will unmute you and you can speak your queries. Over to you, Akash. Welcome to this webinar, and we can start with your session.
Okay. Thank you, Amit. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for logging in at such an early hour on a Sunday. I do understand that it's a tough thing to do. Before I start, just a few confessions. This is my first such webinar, and so I have absolutely no experience of presenting on the web. So maybe Amit and others would help me if I'm going maybe too fast, too slow, if I'm doing something wrong, etc. Rather interesting topic given to me, and so I'll not waste much time, and I'll start with whatever I've prepared today, and let's see how it goes. As Amit said, maybe he'll keep a tab on the time as well, so that when breaks are there, he could probably make me recall. So here we go. Okay, so first thing that probably we should start with is the topic that was given to me. Yeah, it says branding in education, challenges that education sector faces in branding. Amit has given a fairly long introduction to me, so I'll probably keep it to my name. Akash Sethia, CEO of CH EdgeMakers. Just one small little, addition to what Amit said. We're not yet India's biggest brand, but yes, we will want to probably pride ourselves on the fact that we are probably Central India is one of the leading brands. It's still not the biggest one, but then yeah, a leading brand, and we hope to become the biggest. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, my desktop is a little slow because of the maybe webinar probably. I'm just waiting for the next slide. Okay. A quick run through my journey till now. I did my engineering way back in 1993 in electronics instrumentation, SGS ITS Indore. Telco was the company that picked me up from the campus of SGS ITS Indore. You know that company now as Tata Motors. I worked for them in Pune plant for 2 years, and I've had the privilege of working for production, for maintenance, for electronics design, and then for software, either way. So, it was a fairly good mix for 2 years, I must say, at the start. And then I moved to Lucknow, did my MBA from I Am Lucknow in marketing systems, but then did not really join the job that I was offered on the campus. I was supposed to fly off to US as a consultant, and well, since childhood, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, well, a couple of my friends met me. All three of us decided that we'll be entrepreneurs. All three of us did, left whatever we were doing, came back to Indore, and started this company called Cerebral Heights. That's where the name CH comes from. We started as the name Cerebral Heights. Today, it is called CHEM, which is CH EdgeMakers. I'll tell you in the story what it is all about. Well, since then, it has been a 15 years of roller coaster ride, almost, lots of successes, quite a few failures, but then overall a good journey. We have been basically in the business of education. Today, we own two brands. CH Makers is a coaching business, primarily into MBA entrance training, but then we are into MBA entrance training, campus recruitment, English, personality development, and very recently banking exams, etc. is also something that we have added. We also operate as in the formal education sector with the name of CH Institute of Management and Commerce. This is a 6-year-old institute. It is in its 6th year currently, and those are the two things, and both of them we operate out of Indore. A little bit on me. I read a lot. I'm a net buff, and that's why I actually took up this webinar, because it's something new. Love counseling, lots of training that I do, and that's what is my passion. Let's come to the session now. I want to break it into a few steps because we're discussing branding, and I'm not sure what my audience list is like. So what we'll do is we'll start with a little bit of branding, Jan, but let me assure you, it's not going to be an I am, grad kind of thing. Well, you see, I'll collect some things that I have done over the years on branding and probably present it as GAN. That's all. After that, we come to understanding the business of education the way I see it in India. Then we come to the core issue. What are the challenges in creating brands, especially in education, especially in India? And then we'll close down by the brand story of CH Makers. So you could consider brand story of CH Makers as the case study for today. Those 4 will probably complete my my entire presentation to you. And if people feel like answering, getting some queries to answer, we'll probably follow it with an open house. That's how it goes. So let's go to the first thing. And as I said, some branding GAN. Well, long back when I was at the IIM, a gentleman came for a presentation. He narrated this story of branding. I'm not sure how true it is, but then it does serve a purpose. It makes us understand what branding is. In earlier days, the only business we knew was trading. People used to produce goods and then they used to trade. So there was this particular tea trader who used to, collect all his tea leaves and etc. and used to send them in boxes to the marketplace where it would be sold. But then what used to happen there was that a lot of other traders also used to bring their products, and they were also packed in boxes, and so these boxes used to get mixed up, and they used to spend a lot of time separating those things out. So what this guy did was he started marking his boxes with a dot, a black dot, so that he could quickly recognize his boxes and he could take his tea bags, etc. away. Over a period of time, this dot became a brand. Everybody in the market started knowing that if a box is, if a product carries this dot, it comes from this particular trader. And well, over a period of time, people started asking for that dotted tea, and over a period of time, that dot became his brand. So friends, if you realize, this is how brands came into existence. And in this simple story, there are some very simple learnings about branding which sometimes we miss. So, from my experience of branding over the last 14-15 years, and from this is one story that I heard during my college days, I took 3 takeaways from this for branding. They said, realize, I see branding at 3 levels. You need to be, differentiated. Your product or your service has to have an offering which differentiates you from others in the crowd. There has to be consistency, and there has to be delivery. Let us take quickly each one of them in terms of what I mean, so that you will probably be able to understand what I'm saying. And yes, it really does not sound like GAN. It is simple common sense. Let's talk on the first thing, differentiation. Okay, those of you who are listening to it and those of you who are watching it, try and see what these brands stand for. What does it mean to you? Let me take the first name. Lux. And you know, although I can't hear you, I'm sure as soon as I said Lux, a few of you might have said filmi sitaro ka saundarya sabun, beauty soap for the film stars. When I said Tata, and you'd probably say trust. If I say Maruti, and you'd say, well, cheap cars, great service. If I say Dettol, and suddenly to your mind, what will come? Kill germs. You see, each of these brands are well entrenched in our minds for a few words that I named against them. Let's take a few examples from the education sector because that's the theme today. One more, Vicks. I was amazed when in one of the presentations somebody told me that Vicks is actually an antiseptic cream because I always thought that it's a medicine. But think about it, the company decided to differentiate it as a medicine, as a cure for common cold, whereas it's an excellent antiseptic cream. Education. What does IIT as a brand stand for? What does IIMS stand for? What does the School of Economics, Delhi stand for? And you'll realize, while they might not have marketed themselves as a brand ever, they are brands in themselves because they stand for maybe quality education, great placements, superb output in whatever education defines as output. So you see, each of these brands that I've talked about here, okay, IITs are what? They are just engineering colleges. IIMs are what? They are just another MBA. SOE is what? This is another economics degree. But these brands stand out because they differentiate themselves on some or the other parameter. So then the question to ask for ourselves when we are branding ourselves, whether it's education or not, is what should my brand be remembered for? What should it be remembered for? This is the first thing, differentiation. Let's talk about next, which was consistency. Let me tell you a few stories and you'll probably understand what I mean by consistency. A lot of people start to build brands, but over a period of time, what happens is uh, they lose focus, and there are only few brands who stay in the race with the same with the basic focused positioning that they have thought about. Let's take an example. Lifebuoy. Uh, since I was a child, I've been listening to this jingle. Tandurusti ki raksha karta hai Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy stood for Tandurusti, and the basic reason they always gave was that Lifebuoy protects you by killing germs which are there in dirt. Now, I still remember a case study at my IIMS when Lifebuoy launched a beauty soap. A beauty soap, yes. Now, in those days, beauty soaps were marketed by teenage girls trying to look beautiful. Lifebuoy came up with a similar ad. A teenage girl wanting a beauty soap and her mother giving her Lifebuoy beauty soap. Remarkably, it looked like a good ad. We were all thinking that's a nice ad. But then the company took it back, and we were surprised why. And then in one of the seminars, the gentleman from HLL, in those days HLL, suggested that this was first ever shift of Lifebuoy from its positioning of killing germs, and so this was not acceptable. We had a long, consistent brand building of Lifebuoy on the platform of good health based on killing of germs. So they rebranded this beauty soap into a soap which will kill germs, okay, which are responsible for pimples and hence will bring beauty. The connect still had to be the same. ICICI, I'm sure a lot of you might be aware of an ad that ICICI came up with not very far back in the past. A particular customer filling up a form and the personal relationship officer calling for a cake because that day was the birthday of the customer. Excellent ad again. Somebody would like to connect it to emotionally. But then uh, the reality of the fact was that ICICI consistently was not standing on this particular platform. Not, absolutely not of customization or customer you know services. ICICI actually stood for efficiency, technological efficiency. And so this ad was simply not consistent to its positioning. I can give you many examples. Hero Honda is an example which has been consistent throughout. I have ever, since the days that I had seen its first ad, fill it, forget it, shut it. Shut it, fill it, forget. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, fill it, shut it, forget it. Which means, there is only one line which was saying, this is the most fuel economic bike in the country. It has stood for that positioning and has been a very successful brand. One from education. Uh, I took a name, IIPM, because I'm an IIM grad, and a lot of IIM grad actually hate this name. But then uh, one thing that one will have to probably, appreciate in this brand is that it has been consistently saying that here is a brand which you choose if you want to dare to go beyond IIMs. Now, in their communication, they've been very, very consistent on this particular fact, and hence, of such a big crowd of B schools, it is something that has maintained its recall. Everyone knows, for good, bad, ugly reasons, this brand. There are so many other brands in MBA which people might not know, but it works. Well, there is another brand that you probably would want to think about when I'm talking about consistency, and it's Kota. Kota is a city, but all of you know it as the IIT city. Nobody gave it this brand, but then it became that brand because it has been consistently, delivering probably the best results in the IIT circuit. So what am I saying when I'm saying consistency? I'm saying that I shall not confuse my customer. I'll stand for a few things, and those few things I'll stand for it consistent. Last thing. Delivery. Remember the three things I was talking about? I was talking about differentiation, I was talking about consistency, and delivery. In one line, if I try and tell you what I mean when I say delivery, I mean meeting the brand promise. In fact, going beyond it and delighting your customer. Point is this. You know Dettol as the brand it is because it suggested sanitation to you by killing germs, and it is maintained. It is always delivered on that promise. If you look at Maruti, I have had a personal experience. My car met an accident, and I called up a Maruti helpline, and they just sent a vehicle. It was towed, and they took 100 rupees for that. The entire thing was corrected, and when you see the bill, you don't feel bad. You say, well, this is something that they've done. So they've maintained this promise, brand promise. They have a network of service centers which is everywhere, and it's very reasonable. An education brand which probably has maintained its consistency in delivery. DPS, Delhi Public School, is probably one of the few examples which has been very successful in branding in education space. IIPM again, but you know what? I'm bringing this brand for a different reason. IIPM has consistently promised to go, to dare and go beyond the IIMs. However, very few people would probably agree that they have been able to do something beyond IIMs. And here is where probably this brand did not turn itself into what it could have had it actually been delivering something which is beyond IIMs. So, I would say creating a differentiator is relatively easy. Consistently communicating it is also easy, but consistently delivering it on it is probably one of the most important things in creating a great brand. Another example is Ellen's Kota, and this one is a good example. They've maintained that they maintain leadership through results and through sheer discipline, and everything that they do at Ellen's in Kota, follows that philosophy. And so I would say, in terms of branding, they are a very, very strong follower of these three simple principles. So then, what am I saying when I'm saying delivery? I'm basically saying, do I deliver what my brand promises, or do I kind of uh, get swayed away. So that was my first point on the slide, some branding again, and that branding again is what you probably need to remember when I'm talking about problems in branding in education. Let us very quickly now look at the business of education in India. What are some of the characteristics that takes you through? Before I get into this, one last a couple of last things on the branding again. People must remember that branding is not selling. Branding is marketing. Brand does not necessarily sell your product, but it helps people recall you, and sales is a different issue. Hence, one needs to invest in brand. One needs to invest money, and probably one needs to invest time. Most of the brands that I talked about, which are so well entrenched in our minds, have spent a lot of time and money into creating that brand, consistently delivering it. So that's something that will probably people would want to remember. Let's come to the point of the slide: business of education. Uh, in India, one of the most important issues about formal education specifically, and when I say formal education, I mean graduate and postgraduate colleges, mm, and schools. They're supposed to run not for profit. Now, I'm sure all of you, when you look around, you know that most private colleges and schools are running for profit. But then the fact of life is that it is structured in such a manner that the society or trust is not supposed to work for profit. And so, one of the biggest realities of this particular world is that our education system is supposed to run for not for profit, and hence a lot of corporate investment or business or profits do not flow into this particular sector. That's a reality. I'm not criticizing it. I'm not saying this is good or bad. What I'm saying is this is what is the reality of our structure. And as a result, not many corporate actually are in formal education. Very few are there. And hence, those who are there are people who have never been trained or asked to think about what business they are in. Uh, there are two levels of troubles here. Number one, it is already difficult to decide for an educationist as to what business is he in. And then when he talks about when we talk about people who have not been trained to ask themselves this question, you will find that most education businesses, as a result, um, are not able to focus on what they are doing and why. Uh, this probably gives you categories in which Indian business scene basically is divided. There is this very large sector that is growing currently. It's called preschool. Even before a child goes to a school, now some education is happening at that level. There is this primary education, which is fairly innovative in India now, and not really so standardized as the middle and the higher school is. And so, primary education needs to be looked at differently from middle and higher school. Then you have a graduation and a post-graduation thing. And then you have this entire very huge industry which is called parallel education, or call it coaching classes. And then there is vocational education. Uh, each of this have uh, different characteristics.
Hello. Yeah, we are not able to get your voice, Akash.
Hello. Amit, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think there was some technical trouble. Uh, I received a message that the voice was lost. Okay, so can I restart now?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so what I was talking about was that uh, we are in a education scenario where this is divided into so many parts, and each of this have a lot of dissimilarities. But then, uh, purely from the branding perspective, we should probably look at similarities, because that's what could become the basis for branding. One of the most important thing about business and education in India is the regional diversity. This is probably unique to India. You go, it's like India changes almost every 100 odd kilometers, 150 odd kilometers. You travel from one corner to another. Every 150 kilometers down the line, you will probably find you are in a different world, and that is a big challenge for education in India, because as a result, education has to customize consistently uh, in, for the environment that it is in. Uh, Another thing about business of education is that finally your brand will build uh, by word of mouth. However much you spend in advertising, in promotions, in everything that you do, ultimately, if your brand has to carry certain values in the mind of your customer, it has to be substantiated hugely by a very large number of your earlier customers. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that other products and services do not need word of mouth, but what I'm saying is, in education, it is probably the most required. One more thing, parallel education, while it's a big industry now, the problem of parallel education is that it it has to it has to always relate to something which is deliverable. Will this education get me through this exam, or will it get me a certain rank or a percentage or something? Uh, I have not seen very successful brands in parallel education which just relates to development. So maybe India still has not reached that stage as of now. So these are some of the characteristics which I think are very, very mm, pertinent to branding in education. Let's come to the to part 3, and now let me talk about the more core theme of this session. What are the branding challenges in education? Well, I think the first and the foremost challenge that education in India faces, as far as branding is concerned, and I guess overall as a business also, is scalability. What I mean by scalability is that look at all the brands that I have talked about, from Lux to Hero Honda to ICICI. These are very big companies dealing in hundreds and thousands of crores. You would not find a focused brand in education in India today, okay, which will go beyond 100 crores, and those numbers would probably not be in even double digits as of now. The reason being that scalability in education has still been a problem. You might have a successful brand. CH Edgemakers is a successful brand in Indore, but my limited experience of currently taking it beyond Indore and beyond my control has not done too well. And I'm not saying this just for me. I'm saying this for quite a few. Various models have been tried: franchising, now web, teleconferencing, lots of things. But till now, we have not had a solution which will probably scale the business immensely. Now, that does not mean that there have not been a few brands who have successfully done it. There are a few names, but on the whole, till now, scalability has been a big problem. Now, because we don't have big scales, uh, the investment in branding cannot happen in the manner that happens in most other industries. And probably that is one reason we still do not have some very strong brands in education. The next thing that I'll probably want you to think about when I'm talking about branding in education is standardization. See, branding actually assumes standard products. A McDonald's is such a big brand because wherever in this world you go, you'll probably find same standards. And hence, the brand stands for a certain set of things which people take for granted when they see McDonald's. The trouble with education is that even if we bring a Harvard's business school into India, it will probably not be the same Harvard Business School as we know it in the original country. Faculty, delivery styles, student variations, as I said, one of the biggest problems that we face. Here are a few names from education who tried this and have done it to some extent. NIIT in computer education was the first ever brand. How many people remember it today? It was a success in its first decade, and then it has not been able to sustain it. Probably the same reason. It could not standardize computer education in the manner that it could be scaled to so many people in the same manner. What about IMS? And when I say IMS, I'm talking about a brand in MBA entrance, which I also am in. IMS was one of the earliest brand in this business, but then it did not create the same magic across the country. The most successful brand in this category, where some amount of standardization has been brought upon, was probably DPS, Delhi Public School. It is one model which one should study to see what kind of standardization can exist in education. However, even DPS would probably suffer, from variations of delivery quality from a center to center, and that variation could sometimes be quite drastic, and hence one could still not take it for granted that if one has to take a child out of a DPS X and put it into a DPS Y, the experience would be same. Looks like a little tough. Okay, I've just been sent a small message that I'll take one or two questions. Amit, can I just finish this slide and take a question?
Yeah, sure.
There's one more point on this slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The third thing that I would say on challenge on branding is that in education, because there is a scaling problem, and at the same time there are legal hassles of taking too many seats at one place, so we don't have economies of scale actually working there. So most education brands try to create a potpourri of offerings, and so there are multiple products, multiple fields that they are into. Let me take an example. VIT Vellore Institute basically was an engineering institute, and it focused on engineering campuses very, very strongly, and that's why it is known as a technology institute. However, if you look at MET, okay, it has tried to create a everything under one umbrella kind of a brand. ICFI was another where it ended up being into everything, even publishing. Similar examples are FITZY and Career Launcher. But if you realize, MET, ICFI, Career Launcher, who are a potpourri business, their brand currently does not stand for one differentiation across the board, and that's a challenge. So, okay, let's take a couple of questions so that it could possibly give me directions as to what audience are expecting. Yeah, Amit.
Yes. Akash, so one of the question is for an early stage organization, how do you overcome the scalability challenge? Is there any example you could take or experience you could take of people who have overcome a scalability challenge?
Okay. In education in India, I would say that this field is still in a growing stage, and hence you don't have a very long-term example. However, there have been a few. Take for example, I have given a couple of examples here, which are IMS and Career Launcher. To me, they've not done too well at franchising or scaling it up. But on the other hand, there is a brand called Time. Okay, they've done fairly good at actually following a scale. Let me take a smaller name first, because you're talking about a startup. We had another brand in Indore called PT, Professional Tutorials. They did a fair job of scaling it up to some extent up before they gave it up all. So trying to answer your question, what should an early startup do? I think what it should do, and I'm saying this from my experience because we did not follow it, and so I'm saying this with the benefit of hindsight. I think what they should do is they should initially invest in a lot of soft infrastructure to ensure that when you try and scale it up, you're ready for it. What I mean by that is, let's say for example, have enough content, training systems, technology to back up, so that when distances come, you'll have to probably meet those challenges, anticipate, and be ready. So what I would say is, when you're looking at a scaling up a model, be ready to invest in it in terms of both time and money, and create a lot of soft infrastructure, not just buildings, not just great environments, but a lot of content and technology driven support, which will then ensure that at least certain amount of standardization on issues that I've talked about, faculty, delivery styles, customization to student needs, etc., can be met fast, quick, and in an effective manner. When you'll go through the case study of CH makers, maybe I'll throw a little more light on that. So I hope that answers the question to some extent.
Yes. One more question from Ashutosh is, he says when you talked about 3 points about differentiation, consistency, and delivery, his question
Yeah,
is that Bajaj went from a change of Hamara Bajaj positioning to a definitely male positioning. So,
right.
is it important or not important to change your delivery or change your consistency?
It is very important. First, Ashutosh, it's a very good question and a very good example too. Now answering that question, realize that till the time Bajaj was in the business of producing scooters, it maintained that India connect in its brand, the Hamara Bajaj. The one that you're talking about is not really a shift of positioning, but it is actually a new product. Bajaj nowadays don't produce scooters at all. They produce bikes, and bikes, are a different market. So they've actually shifted. Okay, so Bajaj in that sense is not a good example for your question. However, one last thing before I move to the next slide is that brand shifts happen. So by consistency, I don't mean that you are etched in stones, but what I mean is that for a fairly long period of time, you have to remain consistent and focused on that particular positioning. And well, times change, fundamentals change, and so sometimes your positioning or your differentiator goes away, and so you have to move on. That is a different issue. I hope that answers Ashutosh's question as well.
Yes, great,
So
Akash. So we can move on to the next slides.
right. Thank
And
you, sir.
other audience members, if you
I,
have any questions, please type in, or we'll take it at the end of the session at 11. So please be ready with your queries.
and how am I doing on time? Is everything
Akash, I
okay?
think we'll have to run faster on this.
Right. I could think so. Fair enough. So here we go. Mm, the next thing that is a challenge in branding in education is market. You need to realize that for education market, every year you meet new sets of customers, and there is very few repeat sales. At best, repeat sales is when your students or your customers' relatives come to you because that customer was your customer. But then that is a very big difference from a lot of other products that I listed in my examples. Differentiation. One of the biggest problems for education is what do you differentiate on, because there aren't far too many parameters. Look at MBA interest market in which I am, for example. IMS, Career Launcher, Time, CH Makers, Career Forum, PT, what have you. There are so many brands. All of them are preparing you for MBA entrance. Where do you go from there? Which one stands for what? Think about it, and you'll find that it's very difficult for you to actually identify the difference. MBA, there are more than 4,000 MBA colleges. There are, I don't know, maybe more than 10, 12,000 engineering colleges. BComs, what do you differentiate them on? So if you are a startup in business, in education business, probably very early on, you should start thinking of what business are you in and what exactly is it that you will deliver, which will be your core competency. Unless you answer that, branding would remain a big challenge. Last one on this issue. Education is a very regional issue, because your customer, the student, is different, as I said, almost every 100 kilometers. And so what works in Mumbai would not work in Indore, and what works in Indore might not work in Neemuch. And these are just examples of a metro and a suburban, an urban or a rural or a suburban centers. You'll find that people here are so different in their approach to education, in their understanding of education, that nothing works in the same standard manner any two places. In fact, I live in Indore. If I try and implement the same solutions in a city which should be alike, which is just approximately 200 kilometers from Indore, which is Bhopal, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So then friends, those are some challenges to which I don't have very clear answers also. I'm still grappling with some of them, and I don't have solutions to all of them. Let me narrate quickly the CHEM brand story, and maybe you'll probably want to see how those three things that I've talked about uh, we tried to implement, and of course we might have failed at a few places. I've taken the liberty to use some old advertisements that we've used, and so probably that will make it interesting, and at the same time my point is quickly delivered. Let me start by giving you a quick uh, idea of what our brand started with. This was our first ever logo, and the brand started with a name called Cerebral Heights, as I already told you. Okay, now when we started, these were some of the uh, market characteristics. In Indore, we had a single player monopoly. I had told you we had this PT brand which was doing very well in those days. Almost everybody who used to prepare for MBA entrance would be his customer in Indore. There was no other player at that time. He was a good, strong player. He's an IIT. He is actually a very good guy. However, the only thing that I could see in his armor was that there was no MBA actually teaching at that brand, whereas it was an MBA entrance club. We did some research, and then we also found that there was almost no GDPI training happening there. Forget about quality GDPI training. And so we said our differentiator has to start with GDPI training. Okay, so that's what we started with, and that's what we started communicating. The next thing that I'm going to show you is the first ever ad that we released. And if you realize, if you just watch it closely, you'll find that we never actually questioned his position on written test initially. What we said was that you're probably preparing for written test and you're doing good, and it's a fairly solid foundation that you're developing. But are you doing the same for GDPI? Because without that, you're still not reaching there. Okay, and it clicked. It clicked. People started understanding what we're saying, and very soon we reached a situation where we could start getting people, especially for GDPIs. Here is the second one we used, and this was cleaner and better to me in terms of communication. We just told them that, see, clear cat is not all. If you want an admission in the IIM, you'll probably need to change your strategy and start focusing on group discussion interviews. Believe you me, friends, data says it, that at one stage, we reached a stage where everyone who was preparing for MBA entrance in Indore and got some calls would come to us for GDPIs at least. And that then became our start in the business. Okay, so as I said, we then reached a stage where, as I said, everyone who used to prepare for CAT or got a call would do GDPI with us. And so we gradually built upon it, and our brand then moved to commenting that if you are an IMite from Indore, you are a CHI, that is, you are a student of CH. And this was a fact, and so it was on the ground created, and we were only building on to the same positioning that GDPI now, okay, is something which is a necessity, and we are the best there. And it gradually started getting known like that. Well, we started then. We finally launched MBA entrance test prep, because now we had a fair bit of brand in GDPIs, and people used to know us as good MBA entrance player. However, we did not offer MBA entrance test prep initially. So we said, what are we going to now stand for? We again looked at for a differentiator there, and we said, well, we're going to look for the best and the biggest faculty team in the city. Okay, and we'll look at personal attention, and we'll look at quality material. So those were the three things that we would probably want to stand on. Well, quality material was something which probably is not a much of a differentiator, but then that's why that's number 3. We said, if we got to compete, we'll probably be able to focus on the first 2 better. And so our communication started saying this to people. Here is one odd of them. If you realize, we started making our faculty team our biggest differentiator in terms of their qualification, in terms of their experience, in terms of what they have achieved, in terms of what they do to people. And if you look at this ads closely and look at this particular 3 things: most painstakingly planned material, personal guidance, and mesh team of instructors. So those are the 3 things that we have been focusing since. And if you just notice, this is a CAT 05 ad. So I'm talking about since year 2002. Okay, here is another one on the same lines. Our faculty being suggested as one of the best. However, we did not individualize. We said team, faculty team, and that's probably what made a difference. So then it built on. We got attention. In fact, at one point of time, we came up with a very catchy campaign, which immediately established these three better. We use these lines. If you get a better faculty team, join them. Well, this became suddenly, it caught attention of my students immediately. On personal attention, we came up with a line which said, "We train you, not batches." And then on material, we said, "Our material is created, not compiled." So catchy lines, and of course they were. I could not present a visual today, but had I shown you visuals, you would say that this became one of the things that caught attention, brought attention to what we were standing by, and then it made our life easier. Gradually, we grew up, and then as our brand built, okay, we started making it a little more stronger. So then we came up with this ad, which was I think 2000. I think this was 2008, when we said, now if you're thinking of MBA, simply associate CH brand with it. So if you think about it, what I'm saying is I'm building the same brand, and if you go into the details of this copy, you'll see those are the three things: faculty, personal attention, material, which we kept hammering. Okay, so while my communication went through a lot of changes, however, the basic themes remain same. Now, for example, and then this is just an example of how I kept beating the same wood, and what I'm saying is consistency. This is just a result ad, but if you read this corner, it still talks about those three things. So point I'm making is we never forgot that those were the three things that we were trying to build on. So the story went on, and then we finally launched ourselves into formal education. We came up with a college, CH Institute of Management and Communication. It was a different entity, as I said. It was run in a society, a different logo. We came up with this as a logo. Later on, we realized that we probably did a branding error, but then we did this initially. Okay, what was the differentiator we decided for this? We said, well, this will be practical education, an MBA which is going to be practical, because in our areas, and here is one of the communication. If you see a clean communication, which again talks about how we are not just a college which will teach you books. We're going to say a B school that trains you to think business. Okay, that was the positioning we stated, and we have maintained it for the last 5 years at least. So then, what did we do? Very soon there was a merger with, these were some of the growth options that we were looking for. There was a local brand called The Edge Makers. Okay, here was the brand that The Edge Makers was. Okay, and they were a very good training brand in Indore. This brand was merged into CH, and we created the entire CH group. And if you look at it, at this point of time, we've rebranded the CH as it was known earlier, CH, the Cerebral Heights brand. This became the college brand, CHIMC, which was earlier, changed, and so we now brought some amount of oneness and consistency again in our communication, which had got lost for a couple of years because of sudden growth that we tried to look into at other places. So now we are a CH group, okay, which is CH EdgeMakers as a coaching business and CHIMC as the formal education, and maybe soon you'll hear of more. So then the brand story continued. Excuse me, just one second. Papa, जरा ये दरवाजा बंद कर दीजिएगा please. Hello.
Please continue.
Hello.
Yes, Mr.
Hello.
Please continue.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible. Please continue.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just take 5 more minutes and then finish it off. What I was talking about was that the communication continues. We still continue sending the same things. We rejuvenate the communication, but if you look at the middle, it says the best and the biggest faculty team of Central India delivers the best results again, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we've stood for a long period of time, and that probably then sums up my story on branding as far as branding is concerned. And I have kept the entire story close to branding only because that was the theme today. What are the takeaways from today's session? I would say if you're building a brand, whether small, startup or a big one, you'll need to try and ensure that you know what you're delivering and what is going to be your differentiation. You'll need to be consistently doing it, even when initially it does not seem to be giving you an early result. You got to keep faith in your original research and move on. And then, as I said, you'll need to deliver your promise. If you're delivering your promise and if you're consistently communicating the same promise, I think it works best for the branding. That's probably what I wanted to say today. Before I open the house to you, thank you very much for joining me all, and I hope it was worth the time you spent here. It was fun, and thank you so much for listening to me. If in future you'll want to contact, here are some of my signatures which you could possibly use. Thank you so much, Amit, and thank you so much, everybody. If there are questions, I'll be ready to take them now.
Sure. There are a lot of questions coming up. In fact, Mr. Akash, thanks for this wonderful insights on the education brand. Couple of things every entrepreneur is concerned about: how much time to invest in branding and how much money to invest in branding. If you can go back to 10-15 years, how you started and how you took those decisions, can you take us through that journey?
Yeah, sure. Good question again, from whoever it came, but then important question for an entrepreneur. See, and I'm giving you a very back of the paper calculation. People need to do a lot more before they start. But then if you look at education, there are maybe 3 or 4 major areas of investment. And I'm talking about an year. And so I'm not talking about building or, let's call them capital. On an annual business basis, you need to look at 3 things. One is manpower, because in education, manpower is everything. So manpower is going to be one big business, one big expenditure. Second would be operations, running of daily classes, things like those. It's a major expense because that's what you use to deliver. And then third is marketing. So if I try and allocate something, I would possibly say that in the initial, that is starting of years of your business, marketing would take about 30-40% of your 40% of your expenditure, which over a period of time as you grow should come down to approximately 25-30%. If you keep that, you're probably going to maintain a zero debt company. If you leverage, maybe that percentage could be a little higher. And so if you have a 30-40% of your expenses going into, and I'm talking of a budget here, if you spend something like 40% into marketing, you'll probably need to spend a major portion of it into sales. And so assume that 25-30% of that money probably can keep going into branding. Okay, so ensure that your marketing spend is spent in something like 70-30 ratio in terms of sales and branding. Now, one last thing. That's why don't expect your brand to get created in maybe 2 years. It would not happen. What you will need to do is consistently keep branding yourself over a period of time, maybe anywhere between 5 to 7 years. I believe in education, an institute is, stands on its own with a differentiated, clear name in something like 5 to 10 years, depending on how much you can invest in it. So have that patience, give it that time, and probably brand will develop. And of course, it multiplies in the later years. That's how it goes. So I hope that answers the question, Amit.
Yes, sure. Thanks a lot. So we are open to any questions from the audience. Shafiq Mamdani has a question. Shafiq, I have unmuted you. Would you like to speak your query?
Sure. I just wanted to know, so you've been emphasizing on content and the quality of the material. How do you get started with that? I mean, is it through when you have the quality faculty, do you have them generate the content, or how do you do that at CH?
Okay, Shafiq, thank you so much for asking this question. No, quality of faculty and quality of content are two different things. Quality of content would not come just because one has good quality faculty. Quality of content would come when you have a production process in place. So you need to have a detailed system apart from good manpower. It is similar to creating a software, for example. Create a code, do a quality testing checking, and then do a final, what is called client end checking, or runtime testing. So it's similar. Content has to go through these three phases. Someone has to design it, create it, someone has to quality check it, and then it needs to be delivered, and then experiences from that has to be fed back into content. This is an ongoing process. You develop good content over a couple of years, and then consistently keep improving its quality till it reaches really the very best. At CH EdgeMakers, we ensure that these three stages happen in exactly the manner. I have done some years in manufacturing, and so I was able to come up with a process which goes through this three system design. So it's operations management actually implemented in the services business. So don't confuse quality of people with quality of material. It is much more than that. That's probably is the answer to your question.
Okay, thanks a lot. So let us move to the next question. Dhruv Kothari, if you would like to speak your question, I have unmuted you, Dhruv.
No, it's okay. Got it.
Okay, okay, because you had some questions that if somebody copies the idea that you implement,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
what happens?
I got the answer which you gave. The thing is, I was thinking to right now I stay in Mumbai and I want to start distance learning. So the thing
Okay.
is, if we start means if I deliver a lecture in CD and if I give it, so how to deal with the copycats who are there outside Mumbai? Means how to trace them and what can I do? Means if I deliver a lecture in the CD, they'll copy my lecture and they'll deliver there. So how
Yes.
to deal on this?
Listen, Dhruv.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you know, if you get time, go to this magazine called Time, the site of it. There was an excellent article last week on it, which says copying for business success is a good idea. Okay, so now answer to your question. First of all, stop worrying when people copy you, because they will copy you and you cannot stop it, number one. Number two, if someone copies you, it's not a loss to your business. It is actually, it should give you a lot of confidence that if you're being copied, you must be good at it. Okay, the only thing that you do is you keep doing your job in a focused manner well, and try and increase the influence area that you are in. If you are branding yourself right over a period of time, uh, that content will be known for you and not really someone who's copying it. So there will always be copycats, and there will be small-time businesses who'll proliferate on your work. But if you focus on handling them all the time, you move away from the focus. That question: what business were you in? You were in the business of delivering good quality education. Keep doing it. Copycats cannot do it consistently over a period of time. And in any case, on innovation, you would be ahead of them. So every time you keep coming up with newer ideas, okay, your brand strengthens. And once the brand strengthens, people, flock around you. So my suggestion to you would be, don't worry about it. Full stop.
Okay, great. One last question, Akash, since we
Yeah.
have already exceeded a little bit of time, if we can take a couple of minutes more on, what is
Sure.
your view on the new age marketing techniques, like digital marketing, mobile marketing, social media, etc., versus the traditional marketing techniques, the print and the banners and posters and all. So,
Right.
what's your take relative to your business of education?
Uh, like any industry in this business, any industry, education industry also has segments. In India, you have three different Indias existing. One India, which is very much on web. You see, all of us are discussing this on web. Okay, and so there is a fairly large number of students now who are on web through social media networks and various other tools. And if that is your major target, this is a very powerful medium. However, don't confuse this, that this is happening across India as of now. No. I told you, Bombay Indore, Neemacha, 3 different places. In Bombay, maybe now everything is on everyone is on social media. In Indore, this transition is currently happening, and in fact, it has happened to a fairly large extent. But I don't think that the student crowd in other places has still reached the social media, and so print medium, hoardings, even leaflets and pamphlets have their own very important value. Number one. Number two, do realize uh, even today people on the web have not matured in the sense that they don't interact with it in such an involved manner if it is content driven. Most of the web time that students surf on is social media, gaming, and maybe chatting and emails and things like those, which aren't really it's actually difficult to drive messages or images or perceptions through them. So currently this thing is building. The only thing that I can say is they are very important because future belongs to them. Print medium is fast losing its efficacy. Radio has become very weak over a period of time. And so yes, one needs to learn them and be present there and invest on them regularly. In fact, it is cheap, and so it can be done. However, the ideas that we discussed in today's presentation applies there as well. There also you'll require to differentiate, you'll need to remain consistent, and you'll need to deliver on the business. In fact, businesses also have to kind of reorganize themselves to be able to deliver education through web more and more, because I believe over a period of time most students will start actually using web as an important tool for getting educated. So those are the ideas on the web and social network.
Okay, great. I think we will come to the end of this session with these grateful insights from you, Mr. Akash. Any one last piece of advice you would like to give to our audience of entrepreneurs, early stage startups, professionals, and students who are present today in the audience? From your
Okay.
experiences as a journey that you starting from scratch, and you have built Cerebral Heights CHH makers to such a large brand, any learnings or any point of advice if you were to start today that you would like to give to our audience? Any 1 or 2 points, may not be related to branding, anything that you
Sure.
would like to share.
Yes. I'll say 2 things. Okay. First of all, for my age, you will find me fairly old school kind of person. But believe it or not, there is a lot of wisdom in uh, in old thoughts. In business also, there are some very simple rules of doing business, entrepreneurship. Okay, if you focus on them, you'll find that most of your problems that you face in being an entrepreneur can be answered in those insights. I'll give you an example. When I started this business, I had given up a very big career, and so for the first 1 odd year when we were not making any money at all, it was fairly depressing. And about 2 years down the line, I was just having a chat with my dad, and I said, Dad, it seems to be not working, and for last 2 years, I've had an education loan which also you are paying, so I don't know if I did the right thing. And my dad, who was a retired bank officer, and he's had a small stint with business also in his earlier days, said a very simple thing. And he said that his dad, that is my grandpa, used to say that business का cycle 3 साल का होता है. तो अगर तुमने कुछ शुरू किया है तो उसे 3 साल चलाओ और फिर बोलो कि it's not working, and so maybe move on. Now that was very inspiring, and believe it or not, by the 3rd year, all the consistency with which I was working started delivering itself back. So the first thing that I want you to understand is, whenever you feel a little troubled, because entrepreneurs often face those times, look back and look at fundamentals, focus. The second thing that I'll say is, as an entrepreneur, and especially the first generation entrepreneurs, you need to be focused. Most entrepreneurship stories fail because they try to do too many things at the same time, and hence spread themselves too thin financially, or even in terms of the effort that they can put in. So what I would say is, do your research, identify a clear need that you're trying to fulfill, and then at least for the first few years, focus on that. If that works, I'm sure most of you will end up being very successful entrepreneurs, far more successful than I am, because I am giving this as an advice after having lived through it and maybe committed those errors. So all the very best to all of you. Let me also end by saying a small thing. It was fun being here, and it was very nice of Nurture Academy to call me, to let me say what I had to say, to reach out to new people. Thank you so much, and I hope it was worth the time. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Akash. Very nice of you to share, and to all our audience members, I hope you will remember the learnings from Mr. Akash. Consistency, delivery, and differentiation of the brand, and focus as an entrepreneur. It may take 3 years, but it will happen. So, my best wishes to all our audience members. If you have any further queries to Mr. Akash, you can write to him and email, and he will be very happy to guide you on your challenges. And thanks a lot to Mr. Akash for joining us as an expert. Have a great journey ahead as an entrepreneur. I'm sure we love to see CHB in not even all India but all world presence in the near future. Maybe on the cover of Time we will see you shortly. Uh,
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Thank you
yeah.
so much.
And thanks a lot. Goodbye and have a great journey ahead, all of you. This is Amit Grover, CEO of Nurture Talent Academy, wishing you all the best for your future. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye, everybody.